All right, Duncan, if you would, give me a little audio.
You weren't joking about a funky theme song.
Right?
Sounds like we're about to start like The Price is Right or some shit.
Don't you dare. Okay. You sound good, I think. Give me a little bit more.
Testing 1 2 for Bo Ramsdell.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think our levels look pretty good. I'm going to ease mine up just a skosh and see if that helps any. But that looks okay.
Nice.
All right. Back to the funk.
Because we've got to talk about dumb teenagers.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking about dumb teenagers. Indeed, Duncan. And here we are live. Welcome to another episode of Duncan and Bo Come Correct. Continuing our series, Duncan and Bo Slash Fiction, in which we are winding our way through the slasher series. There was some concern in between seasons that perhaps season 2 was just going to be too darn good, Duncan, for us to do our normal goofery.
Well, I said to you just before we went live there that weirdly it hasn't been a lot of time since we finished season 1, but in the COVID world where time is but a flat circle, Bo, I went in super up. I don't know why. I bounced into this one last night going, right, let's do this. I am in the mood for some slasher. And found out very quickly that this show it's almost when they're making it as if they're begging it to be ridiculed, and we will take up that mantle.
Right. Yeah. They give us the slap across the face with the glove of how dare you, sir? And we bid them a good day. So here's what happens on the show. If you've never listened before, if you've never watched before, what we do is up front, we're going to talk about a couple of movies, good and bad, that we have seen since last we spoke, and it has been a bit. In terms of movies, of course, you got the super special Duran Duran episode, and thanks to everyone who checked that out. We actually, like a lot of poor unsuspecting fools who were just looking for good old-fashioned Duran Duran talk, check that out, and I apologize to those people, because yes, there was some music analysis, but not much. It's mostly just fucking around.
It's like when we approach any subject, Bo, I like to think we insert our personalities right in there.
Yeah, we get our personalities way deep up in there. And
yes, pound of flesh, Bo. We have to demand a pound of flesh on any topic.
So, first of all, thanks for everyone who checked that out. Thanks for joining us this season. I will tell you right off the bat, we do have a good question for right before, and that's what we do. We do the movies, and then we do some questions if we have some, and then we jump into the slasher conversation. Real good question this time around. But if you want to throw a question into the chat, I will be keeping an eye in that direction here and there, so that we can nab those questions greedily, snatch up good questions like gold, Duncan. Not sure what's going on here. And
all of a sudden became the leprechaun.
Oh, the leprechaun. I don't have my flashlight. Stop it, man.
The leprechaun.
I'm the leprechaun. Yeah.
Don't be stealing my pot of gold.
We are about to do Orca on Pick Six Movies, and
nice,
and the terrible impression of Richard Harris that is going to come out of that is
Richard Harris is at the gold mine.
Yeah, and I mean it's a terrific movie. Anyway, I don't want to pimp other shows. I'm going to do that here in a minute.
What's the I take it the theme is Jaws ripoffs.
It is, yeah. The whole theme of the season is it's like Jaws, and the premiere will be Friday with Grizzly.
It's like Jaws, Jim, but not as we know it. Is that what you're saying?
Right. It's, like when you're describing these movies, it's like Jaws, except, insert the other animal or situation or whatever.
You'll literally do anything to talk about alligator again, won't you?
That is coming up. On the don't even worry about it. Alligator will be making an appearance. Ramon the alligator. I had forgotten that the little girl names that alligator Ramon.
Ramon.
Right. Don't you dare flush me down this toilet. Ramon will not stand for it. If you flush me down this toilet, Ramon will grow 50 times his size now, and soon he will eat all of you. That's my Ramon the Alligator impression.
Very good.
Coming soon. So that's been real fun, and let's just get into some movies. Let's quit screwing around. Let's talk about some movies, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's start, Dunk. You got one? You got one in the chamber? You got one at the
Yeah,
ready?
I do. So I have actually released an episode on this recently, but it's probably worth talking about because it's available on the Arrow channel. So the Arrow player, which is now like available in the States and in the UK through your streaming devices and the website and whatnot. You get 30 days free. So it's basically they're putting up an alternative to Shudder at the moment. It contains Arrow titles, but also contains a kind of curated list that they bring on for a limited time period. Kind of like, I don't know if you guys got Mubi over there. MUBI.
Maybe. There's like 1,200 of them now, Duncan. I don't know.
So Mubi, like their whole kind of modus operandi is purely curated lists of movies. So they'll get a director who curates a list of movies for a month, and they're there for a month, and then after that they're gone. So kind of, you can kind of dip in, dip out. So Arrow are kind of doing that along with their own titles. But what they've been specifically doing is they've been movies that they will be putting out on Blu-ray, like in the next 2-3 months. They're bringing them to the channel early, so people can experience them like in a streaming environment, maybe inform a decision whether or not to buy them. And the movie that I checked out recently was called Threshold, which has just dropped and apparently had quite a good festival run. And I really liked this movie, but it's not what I was expecting specifically from the blurb. So this is a movie that's completely shot on iPhones. So kind of think like Tangerine. That sort of kind of, it's all iPhones or Unseen, the Soderbergh movie, all iPhones, all shot. And I mean, it doesn't look, there are certain camera angles that very much look like, and some camera kind of tomfoolery that's very much like, well, that's an iPhone you've stuck to the side of a door and then closed it, that sort of thing. But for the most part, it's all shot on iPhones. It's mostly a character study. It's about a brother who goes back to pick up his sister, who was a drug kind of fueled maniac in the past, but has went to rehab and possibly relapsed. And he's there to pick her up. And they've been estranged for a while. It was all messy when she said some bad things. Then it stopped talking. And when he goes there, she basically says to him, "Listen, I know I look like I'm sick from drugs, but I'm not. The rehab facility you sent me to was actually like a cult, and they performed this weird ceremony, and what it's done is it's tethered me to someone else who was in a similar position, and the kind of side effect of that is whatever he feels is what I feel now. So if he takes drugs, I get the effect, and vice versa." And of course, he doesn't believe her. So she kind of talks him around to going cross country on a road trip to track down the other half of the tethering, to find out whether or not she's actually telling the truth. And if she's not, she ends up in rehab. And that's the kind of setup for it. But it's just a really good character piece. The two main actors are really funny, warm, engaging, kind of heartfelt, tragic in parts. And it's mostly just a road movie. But this has been pitched squarely as a horror movie, and it becomes a horror movie in the last 5 minutes, which is kind of amazing. But also has that wicked sense of humor about it. To me, it feels like a festival movie as opposed to a horror movie, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
And there's a lot to glean from it, and I'm glad that Arrow's picked it up, and I'm glad that Arrow's putting it out. But the way they are kind of selling the movie, I think will have a negative impact from people that are expecting much more from it than it actually does. So the movie is called Threshold. It is available on the Arrow player right now. You can jump across, like I say, you can get 30 days free on the player and then cancel it if you don't want it. But it is getting a Blu-ray release in July. But yeah, I thought it was surprisingly good. The character interactions reminded me a lot of the Innkeepers. The two
Ooh,
characters
that's
that,
a high bar. I
yeah,
really
well, I
like the
just,
Innkeepers a lot.
yeah, I just like it's they just feel like a brother and sister. That make like it just feel like the banality of some of the conversations are just, and like the script is written in such a way where, like in some movies I hate like when characters come together, they're supposed to, they're best friends, or whatever, and because we need to exposit some of what's happened, when one of them mentions something, they then tell them the whole backstory. Remember that time that you we drove to Richmond? The character's like, yeah, but then the character goes on, yeah, we drove to Richmond and then there was a flat tire. Like, you're not that, you never speak to your friends like that, because Richmond's enough. Like, all the memories are there. But some movies feel the need to push that, and Threshold doesn't like that, and I kind of like it. Like, there's in jokes between the two characters that you don't fully get, but it tickles the characters, and that makes sense to me. That's more organic. So I just felt that was one of its strengths. And yeah, the last 5 minutes is kind of fucking brilliant. So
All right,
um,
that's exciting. Like that description kind of reminds me of a description of something like She Dies Tomorrow or something like that,
yes.
where it's like this is not a movie for everybody, but if
Mhm.
you like that kind of artsy festival sort of film, then it hits that nerve for you real well. Like
Yeah.
I She Dies Tomorrow is a movie that I don't really recommend to a lot of people outside of, kind of diehard cinephiles
Yeah.
or horror fans, but it's
Very
one that I
difficult
think
to,
about
yeah.
a fair amount. Like that's a really interesting movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie, but I'm with you. It's one of those ones where, I mean, where do you start?
Right.
like, you almost kind of have to get them to fill a questionnaire in before. Do you like movies like Pontypool? Like, it's that kind of level where, like, did you like the premise of? Did you understand the premise of Pontypool? Right, now let's give you an artistic movie to weigh things out for you're kind of almost having to do like 3 or 4 ticks before you go, right, well, I can recommend this movie. And if they fail any of those ticks, then you're like, this probably isn't the movie for you.
Yeah, give me a 5-word response to Under the Silver Lake, and I'll tell you based on that how much you'll like She Dies Tomorrow.
Nice.
It was a waste of time. Oh fuck, that's 6. Then you're like, all right, yeah, you can skip She Dies Tomorrow. Um, so was that's your good, right?
That's my good, yeah.
Okay, so let me pair that with my good. Which is all right. This is a little bit of shameless self promotion, but I
Oh.
don't give a fuck. Uh, so recently on Hero Hero Go Show, we started doing the One Missed Call series.
I know, because a certain chap that joined you records a William Castle box set with me, and he was talking on our last recording about how much fun he had finally making his appearance on Hero Hero Go Show.
Yeah, so Derek Bourgeois is with us for this run of One Missed Call films. Right, it was just a matter of time. I'm finally getting around to getting Derek on the show where he belongs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's my good is the original One Missed Call. It had been a while, and doing a bit of a deep dive on it where like, oh, let me really sit down with this movie and really pay attention to the beats and the colors and the music and like really examining it as a piece of cinema.
Mm.
And when Takashi Miike is at the helm, that turns out to be real rewarding because he can't not make interesting movies. Like even some of his crazy manga inspired stuff is really interesting. Like, Sukiyaki Western Django is a
Mm-hmm.
really interesting movie.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
has
yeah.
nothing to do with horror, but it's really interesting. I really want to see that Phoenix Wright movie he did because I like the game, I like courtroom dramas, and I like Takashi Miike, and I want to see if there's any cum in the movie. That's what I'm curious about. But anyway, so I got to sit down and really deep dive on One Missed Call, and man, I love that movie so much.
Mm.
There is a spirit of sort of malevolent glee that kind of permeates that movie, where Miike just doesn't give a fuck and is really going for scares in any way he can get them. He's like a
Mhm.
real whore for scares in that movie in a way
Yeah.
that I really appreciate, where he's just like, oh, how about this creepy hand on the shoulder? That didn't do it. How about this jump scare over here? That didn't work. How about this ghost walk on the ceiling? Nothing yet. All right. How about this corpse that looks like a Fulci movie? Nothing.
Yep.
All right. How about this possession thing? All right. Now we got you. It's just like there's that giant set piece in the middle of the movie at the television studio that's just remarkable and really tense and fantastic, that culminates in this girl getting twisted up like a pretzel before your eyes. It's so goddamn good. It's one of those movies that when I watched it again, I felt guilty for not watching it more, because it's
Mhm.
like, this is like, forget J horror or Asian horror or whatever. This is just one of the best horror movies of the 2000s. Just full stop. One of the like, I feel like it got short shrift in that summer series in some ways, but man,
Mhm.
One Missed Call is terrific.
I'm looking forward to revisiting because it's up. We're doing the trilogy for Russian Roulette franchise retro. I want to say in like 2 months' time. So, and I've not seen past two. So, I've never seen the third one.
Did you know, Duncan?
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't before doing a lot of my homework for this series. There was a One Missed Call television show that takes place between One Missed Call 2 and One Missed Call 3
No.
that continues the story somewhat, but it is completely unavailable. Like, I'll be honest with you, I had Richard Glenn Schmidt looking for this thing for me, and that man knows how to find some obscure stuff.
You put Richard on the case.
Yeah,
And
and
that's like that's like bringing a nuke to a gunfight.
it was like, yeah, I had to sit down with him like, Mr. Holmes, I've got quite the conundrum. Turns out it was a locked room, and I can't find the One Missed Call television series. And I even,
Indubitably, Mr. Ramsdell.
yeah, yeah, sucking on his meerschaum. And he got back to me. He was like, I can't. There's nothing out there, man. I just can't find nothing. And yeah. So anyway, if anyone, I said it on that show, but if anyone has a line on the One Missed Call television series from like 2010, I am super curious to see that movie.
I believe we call this in the podcast beds, hook your boy up.
Yeah. Hook your boy up. He's a big One Missed Call fan. And but that's the thing, is nobody's ever seen One Missed Call 3, because nobody, not even the people who made it. And the reason is you start watching these movies and you're like, One Missed Call is amazing. And then you watch One Missed Call 2 and you're like, oh, that was not as good. And then people just stop. They're like, there's another one. I'm okay.
I'm fine. Yeah.
One Missed Call is great. Yes, it is. But we are not stopping, Duncan. We're gonna do something no other show has ever done, which is watch One Missed Call 3.
Yeah, and I'm going to be close on your heels, Bo.
Yes.
What I'm not looking forward to is that I know for a fact before I even start the series, the likelihood of you telling me how bad that third movie is going to be high. And then I'm going to be like, oh no. It's like being on the Titanic, being warned of the iceberg well in advance, but sadly you've already committed to the route.
Right. Yeah. I just can't get out of this. Like, I'm saving I got it cheap. I'm saving 20% on the ticket. And what am I going to do? Not go? I'd be a fool. I might be a fool, but I'm not a damn fool. So yeah. Anyway, enough One Missed Call filleting, but boy, it was one of those things. It's the new like Arrow set that has beautiful Blu-ray transfers, and
I've got it right here, still to open it. So
yeah, that's sitting upstairs right now. Yeah, it's a terrific set. Looks fantastic. And here's the thing, like One Missed Call 2, maybe not a great movie, but when you're watching, you're going to think to yourself, this movie has never looked better. It may not be great, but this movie looks fantastic.
Oh yeah, I know. Like this year particularly, the last year and a half, really up their Asian content, which
What
I'm
Domadon is
kind of.
coming
Yeah, the
in
trilogy, the
July?
box
Yeah.
set. Woo!
But yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
just dropped that out. I love the fact that they've just right after that Gamera set, which is legit amazing. I've not opened it yet because it's like it needs a wing of the house to itself. But yeah, like between that and just some of like the stuff they did with the Invisible Man versus the Human Fly set that they released, the Black Test Car, which I watched recently, which was really good. Yeah, they've just they used to put out the occasional kind of Mickey title here or there, but they always had like you like Pulse and stuff and Dark Water. They put them out in Blu-ray in the past, but for whatever reason, in the last year and a half, they've clearly made some inroads over there, and they're just putting out a ton of awesome stuff. Also helps that they are the main distributors now for Third Window distribution, who put out a ton of stuff like One Cut of the Dead and things like that. So Arrow's the parent company of them now. So I think they've probably made quite a lot of contacts through that. But yeah, there's just loads coming to be excited about. So yeah, can't wait.
Speaking of not being able to wait, give me your bad movie.
So it's not a bad movie, it's a bad scene, Bo. And this is a scene that almost brought us to blows once before. So I'm going to try and keep it concise. Me and my harem of Twin Peaks watchers on the Teapots cast commentaries on Thursday nights have started season 2 with gusto. And we got to that second episode in season 2, which contains the song Just You and I. And you know, I fucking hate that song. I hate it. The only thing that saves that, because it started happening, I was like, oh fuck my ring, honestly. To have to deal with this again, forgetting that the scene that comes right after is the infamous Bob crawls over the sofa scene.
Oh, that's amazing. Right, there's a ton of Bob in the early goings of that second season.
Well, it's David. I think David Lynch directed the first 2 episodes, and that's why. Because that first episode back is where you get the nightmare scene in the train car. So the actual death of Laura Palmer. So you get all that, and it's fucking terrifying. And then that second episode, I was literally sitting there going, "This is the worst bit." The whole singing this shit, and then I was like, "Oh, wait 1 second, actually." Like, all come back to me. And yeah, so I had to wade through the awfulness of that song to get the glory of creepy Bob crawling over the chairs. And I will say this: I've gained the Duncan and Bo Go to Twin Peaks episodes a couple of new listeners who, like Kate, if Kate's watching, Kate has arrived at that like about 4 years too late. So I love the fact that she keeps messaging us to tell us how funny certain bits are that I can't remember. Like, I can't remember half of it. And I just assume everyone's listened to it as well. So until she started listening, the first 3 or 4 episodes of Twin Peaks we're watching, every time Hawk comes on screen, I go, Kaka! Like this. And they were like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, that's right, you didn't.
Yeah, how do you not know this? This is the universal sound for Hawk.
I was like, this is like mine and Bo's universe. And you will be acquainted, you will understand it soon. But we're about to get, like, the jokes start coming to me like as I'm watching it, and when I remember certain things we've done, and one of them I completely blocked out my memory is we're about to meet Mr. Smith, or as we voiced him as Agent Smith. The Matrix. So there's a whole wing of nonsense because they were talking about how funny certain things are, and it's like, oh, wait till we get to Mr. Tajimura. It's just like
Tajimura is
Asian Brimley. Asian Brimley, which is the greatest. Like, so wait till we get to this, and you're gonna have so much fun. But my bad, because I haven't watched a hell of a lot of stuff since we last recorded. That is worth noting of here out with the stuff for the summer series. So yeah, the thing I wanted to double down on is I do not like that song, and I know that you can have a soft spot for it. So
I mean, it's terrible. I'm not defending it as a good song.
It's the bit where they're playing it, right, and he's got this like weird echo on his microphone, which doesn't make sense. But he's playing it, and then a bass guitar comes in. There's no bass guitar there, and then a drum kit comes in. There is no drum kit there, Bo.
It's Donna. She's a one-man band.
Well, that's where Donna
cymbals
gets,
between her knees. And
like, don't worry, at this part of the season, Donna's wearing Laura Palmer's sunglasses, so she's getting a bit of the Palmer in her. And at the same time, she sees him making eyes at, You look like Laura and
Yeah.
Maddie. And
You
she
look
gets
like
jailed.
Laura.
That's literally it.
I
You don't look like
forgot how.
Laura.
Yeah.
It's all the way through our recording, by the way. And it gets worse. We hardly do it in season. Actually, when you go back and listen, if you ever get the chance, go back and listen to us. We are relatively straight in that whole first season. And then something, I know why it is. The second season isn't very good, and we had to make it entertaining. But that second season is where half of the shenanigans come up.
Half the other half was sprinkled throughout, Westworld and X-Files at that point.
Well, that's what I've told them. I've already told them, like, when you finish getting through Twin Peaks, you need to do the X-Files episodes, and then you need to get through the Westworld episodes just to understand the Duncan and Bo verse.
Right. Yes, there are duplicates and droids and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it gets very crazy. What's your bad?
Oh, I won't spend too much time on this, but speaking of not being a damn fool, so I watch a lot of crap horror movies, especially during the day. Like here recently, it's been kind of busy at work, and one of my sort of ways to kind of navigate a dull day of doing some relatively mindless kind of programming is I'll throw a shit horror movie on because I don't have to pay that much attention, right? Like I'm not doing a deep dive or nothing. I'm just curious, like because every now and again you'll run into one of those that's pretty good, and I'll put that on the shelf and be like, all right, I need to pay attention to this movie. But here's something I can cross off my list, and the so the sub clause of that is really what I want to get to, which is that I can also mark whole swaths of movies off by the director. So I watched one recently called Swarmed, which was, just kind of a killer bug movie, but I was sort of in the mood for something like that, like.
Is that the one with the wasps?
Yeah. They're hornets, I think.
Hornets. I'm trying to remember because I have seen it. Is that Lance Henriksen? No.
No. This wasn't even Lance Henriksen quality.
Dear.
You got a Carol Alt, I think is probably the biggest name in it.
I have seen it. I definitely have. No, it's Stung I'm thinking about. Not.
Yeah. I know what you're right. Yes. Stung is a far, far superior film. Swarmed is directed by a guy named Paul Ziller, which I looked up because I was like, this A, does not feel like this guy's first movie, and B, feels like he does a lot of these shitty movies. And I was sure enough right, and I have here, Duncan, a quick list of Paul Ziller films. This is by no means comprehensive, but here are movies I don't have to watch now. Ball the Storm God, 2010 Moby Dick, Stonehenge Apocalypse, Polar Storm. If that doesn't do it for you, how about Solar Storm? Oh, I'm sorry, Solar Attack. Solar Attack, Polar Storm. I don't want to confuse those. Let's see, what else? Monster Island, Mega Shark vs. Crocosaurus, a remake of the Philadelphia Experiment, apparently. Android Apocalypse, and a this is my personal favorite, a Transformers ripoff entitled Metal Shifters. So I don't have to watch any of those movies. Anytime I see the name Paul Ziller now, I can cross that off.
I don't know, 2010 Moby Dick has my curiosity peaked.
Moby Dick 2010. Okay, so that features, because that I was like, maybe the premise of that, instead of it being, a whaling vessel, it's a guy in a submarine hunting a whale. So you can see how this cheap film is coming together, where you just shoot the submarine on a set.
Like you can literally, it feels like an unfair advantage to the submarine, because you just shoot a fucking torpedo.
Right. Yes, you could absolutely murder a whale with a torpedo. I don't know that would even explode.
You can wipe out a country with a torpedo. So I'm just saying that.
I think, right, I don't think the torpedo would actually explode. It would just punch through the whale because the whale's just soft tissue. I mean, it's like shooting a giant gun at a whale at that point.
I can't wait to see the pitch for this one. You've all seen Moby Dick. It's amazing. So what I'm saying is we mix it with Das Boot. Like let's bring them together. A little smidge of Hunt for Red October in there. A little bit of Crimson Tide, and we've got a movie, people. Now, I need to say the quality is not of any of those movies at all. We only have one set location and $50,000 to make it happen. Who's with me?
Yeah, I can already in my mind see that scene where the whale hits the submarine and a bunch of hoses fall.
Like the Star Trek thing where everyone's
Yeah.
like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I'm doing this a bit as a public service, and also to say that, yes, I watch shitty movies, but I also have some standards where when I see one and someone is responsible for a bunch of other ones, I don't watch those.
Yeah.
So I can be taught. Speaking of being taught, sorry, I glanced over to check the question that I have on the table, and it was just at the point, because I'm also monitoring the video feed, and it was just at the point where you were waving back and forth. And it was very silly, which I really appreciated. So
spare no expense, Bo. Spare no expense.
Yeah, no, boy. I wonder if Robert just sent me the. All right, I'll check that out. If that is in fact the one missed call series, sir, you are a godsend. Speaking of. He has a question that I really, really liked. Maybe it's just because it's something that's been a bit on my mind as well. But Duncan,
yes,
prepare to wisely, sagely answer a question. Here it is. Do you have any words of advice or encouragement for someone who has long wanted to learn something new, but plagued by fears of not only not succeeding, but fears of what others may think and or if it's age appropriate? Be it trying to learn the basics of a different language or inspired by Liam's skateboarding, how can someone fight discouragement maybe before their adventures? I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, now is not the time to edit. I'll get out the red pen later. How can someone fight discourage before their adventure has even really begun? Is it ever okay to abandon something within the early stages and admit defeat? Or being foolish. So Duncan, yeah, you can take first crack at that.
So I'm notorious for I'm probably the best placed actually to answer this question, but just in the interim when it comes to obsession, I mentioned this before in the recording. My brain is wired just a little bit different from the majority of people out there, in that when I decide to set my mind to something, it goes all in. I dedicate a huge portion of my waking thought, which is a lot because I don't sleep that well, towards doing something. Now that comes with its pros and its cons. The pros are that I will try and free up every available waking hour to achieve something or learn something. And that level of dedication comes with a huge amount of research that comes with it. So I'll do a lot of reading into something. I'll a lot of kind of video watching. I will speak to people that have done said thing before I progress myself into it. The negative side of that is that I bore of things very quickly. Like once I've achieved what I set out to achieve, I no longer see the purpose of maintaining it, which is the massive negative aspect, in that I will dedicate a huge amount of time to things that in the long run are probably inconsequential, out with a 5-minute podcast conversation 5 years from now when someone asks something about a particular topic that I seem to have a huge amount of knowledge of, but haven't really taken it any further forward. I think there was a part of time where people couldn't really progress beyond what they'd learned in the first 20 years, 25 years of their life. I think they were very much stuck in a rut. I think technology, the way it's traveling so fast and moving so fast, it basically means that every generation is very malleable when it comes to picking up new skills, whether that be computer-based, physical, language-based, musical. There's a lot of different avenues to go down. And I think ultimately the biggest obstacle in achieving any of those things is kind of twofold on yourself. One is ability. Like some people just aren't built to be able to do certain things, and that can be physically speaking. Like some people don't have the correct. I have a weird build. My body's shaped quite weird. That I should, in theory, because of my broad shoulders, I should, in theory, be really good at weightlifting. I am terrible at weightlifting. I am, however, really good at running. And my body's not built that way. Like I shouldn't be able to do that. But
you're like a bumblebee.
And I've got a strange, it really is. The older I get, the more I realize that, like, I don't know if someone punched my mum in the stomach when I was still in the womb or whatever, but I came out misshapen, right?
Yeah, I mean, in Scotland, anybody could have been punched at any time for any reason, pregnant or not.
Yeah, that's how they say hello. That's a handshake. We replaced the handshake.
But yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like, for 10 years or so, I was desperate to be known as the Spanish Shirley Temple. And then I realized that's probably just not going to happen for me.
Well, it's the thing. Like, I'm very, very into music, and I have tried to learn guitar about 5 or 6 times, and I abandoned it within the first 6 months. And every time I buy I sell off the guitar, but I buy a brand new one, sit down and go back through it and get a couple of months in it and realize it's not that I don't have the temperament. My fingers specifically don't have the dexterity to play what I want to play. I could play like just general kind of rocky music. That's not rocky soundtrack music, as in rock inspired music. But like if from a guitar point of view, I'd really want to like master the blues and that sort of stuff. I just don't have the finger dexterity to do that. So there is a point where I think you do have to draw a line when you realize, if your goal is to achieve one specific thing and you realize early in that period that you're not going to achieve that one specific thing, you have to basically reevaluate what you're doing. And if you can settle for what you can get out of it, then it's not a waste. It's never a waste. However, if you realize that that's the only thing that you're trying to train to achieve, and you will never achieve that for whatever reason, I think there's no harm in calling quits. Your time on this planet is finite. You know what I mean? It is, and you need to focus it. There's a million TV shows you could be watching. There's a million different vocations you could be trying. And to put all your eggs in one basket, unless you have specific knowledge, or someone has specifically told you that has that knowledge that it is achievable or attainable within X amount of time with X amount of practice, then there's no harm in drawing a line under it. So, like, for me, I don't think any additional educational, vocational, challenge is a waste of time. The hardest part is starting the journey. And to your last point, I never care what anyone thinks about me, like, at all. I don't care what like my family think about me. That's like, I live for myself. As soon as you start putting, what will people say if they learn? For Liam, for example, Liam's a great example of this. He just turned 30 and decided to take up skateboarding, which, I mean, it's a young man's game, Liam. He's not listening to this, but it's a young man's game. He's already injured himself because of it. And God knows how many times he's had near misses. But I'd like, there's a great thing of he's like back from the hospital. And he took a screen grab of of a conversation with his mum where he's basically saying, "Yeah, I've fractured the metatarsal in my pinky finger," and his mum says, "You know what? He wrote, done that." But that's what it takes for being cool. And what his mum texted him back, it's such a mum thing. She was like, "That no broken bones and staying safe is what's cool, son."
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. You know what's
like
really cool? Not doing drugs and doing your homework.
it's literally that sort of thing.
Yeah.
To which you basically come back to her to say like she was being lame or something like that. You know, it's just like a total like teenagers conversation. She's
Right.
10
Yeah,
years
that's
old.
a real mother-son
Yeah.
conversation. No
So,
matter any age.
yeah, like, but Liam genuinely doesn't care what people think of him doing skateboarding. I genuinely don't care what people thought when I started doing podcasting. I remember trying to tell people, and they're like, why? Why would anyone listen to you talk about things when there are journalists and, you know, movie sites and all the rest that specifically do what you're wanting to do? And I was like, well, because I want to do it. Like, that's this, I want to do it. And if it fails, it fails, but it's my failure and no one else's. If you allow your failure to be someone else's victory, then you're putting too much pressure on yourself. So never worry what anyone else thinks. Try everything if you can get an opportunity to do it. And I personally don't think you are copping out if you realize early in the journey that the road to that achievement is either far too difficult for the time that you have to allocate to it, or just out with your reach. Because I think being realistic that way saves a lot in the long run. So, but yeah, try everything. Like, but by all means, never let anything stop you. Like, for a while, I was baking my own bread. It didn't taste amazing, but I tried it for a while. I stopped it when I realized I would have to maintain like a yeast starter by feeding it every morning for like, and I was like, another mouth to feed in this house. No, not doing it.
Yeah.
I've
already got kids.
Yeah, down the sink you go, Mr. Starter, that I've cultivated for 6 months. I was like, this is getting beyond a joke now. And it was like at that point where I was like, I was freaking out. I'd be sitting like in bed going, did I feed the starter? That's too much pressure. That is too much pressure. I was like, I'm not doing this. So like, there's no harm in that. But yeah, Robert, never let what other people think of you worry you, unless your vocation is to become the world's greatest serial killer. Then at that point, I would just say society might have the right in that. So
yeah,
don't know if you've got like, but I get the feeling, Bo, that you're like me a little bit in that you start things with I'm like, this is a great example. Like all this video stuff we weren't doing a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And you've just sat down and decided this is what I'm going to do, and you have achieved it. I'm sure there's still steps you need to get through to get it to exactly the way that you want it to be in your mind. But it's all about like, well, fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah, there are a couple of motivations for me that haunt me all the time. And much like the final, 12 seconds of It Follows, the one thing I think of about every 18 seconds is how short life really is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a notion, like the existential dread of death is something that hovers over me constantly. It's something I think about in the shower a lot.
Don't tell me that. I'm going to just start sending you selfies of me dressed like the Grim Reaper.
Hello. Like, I'm not afraid of the grip. Like, it's just that idea of like, just there is going to come that time where I'm going to go to the doctor and he is going to tell me that thing that ends my life. And that's just all of us. That's life, right? That is the process of life now, is that most people live to an age where just your body just starts shutting down. And I haven't hit that point yet where, I'm a little sore sometimes, but I haven't hit the point where my body's just out and out revolted, where it's just been like, fuck it, I quit. So I haven't had that.
Not
moment.
today, Ransdale.
Right. Like the shit that I have done to myself hasn't caught up with me yet. And I'm really lucky for that, So anyway, so I have that kind of It Follows sense of death constantly on my heels. But married to that is the idea that make fucking death catch you, like don't let death catch you sleeping. Mm-hmm. And, I don't mean in the Duncan way where you're awake for an unhealthy amount of time. I just mean like figure out what it means for you to make the most of the time that you have, you know? Like there are things that I'm bought into where I'm like, this is the thing that brings me joy. It excites me. It inspires me creatively or intellectually or whatever. So these are the things I want to put some time into.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I like doing new shit. Like you said, the video stuff is part of that. But just a million things. Like there's constantly stuff that I'm like I do way more in my yard. I'm learning about how to
Yeah.
make my yard look nice. You know, shit like that of, chinch bugs. A lot of people don't even know what that is. Um sorry. Had to go a little Caddyshack for a second. But yeah, so that kind of thing. And but I've really, that fires a different part of my imagination where it's like, oh yeah, there's a way to kind of landscape this that in a way that brings me some personal satisfaction. And that's just, here's another thing that I didn't know how to do before that now I know how to do because it brings me some joy or
Mhm.
whatever, brings me some kind of personal satisfaction. And it doesn't hurt anybody else, and that's a real big bonus as well.
Yeah.
Like Doug was saying, like if anything that you're contemplating is going to result in the emotional or physical pain or of another, then fucking don't do it. But beyond that, yeah, like don't be afraid, because there's the old saying of like you don't lie on your deathbed regretting the shit that you did. It's the stuff
Yeah.
you didn't do. And yes, there is plenty of stuff that you could have been dreaming for years, like I'm gonna learn how to hang glide.
Yeah.
And you go hang gliding once and you're like, fuck this sucks. And that's
Well, that's
fine.
it. There's an expectation that sometimes the perception of what something is will be that, and most of the time it isn't.
Right, but experience it for yourself and
Yeah.
do the things, like I said, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. The two kind of motivators for me are, I like to produce stuff. I like to make stuff that didn't exist before in some way or
Mhm.
another. That really satisfies me, whether it's writing or podcasting or doing the video stuff or whatever. It's making something. I really like that. Um, and the other thing is just learning something every day if I can. And it could be anything. Like I've recently moved away from the Adobe products because I'm getting tired of paying the exorbitant rates to use their software on a monthly basis. And I was like, you know what, if I just sit down and teach myself some other alternatives, I can
Mhm.
probably do the same thing. It won't be exactly what I'm used to, but life has changed. you know so I've been able to do that, and it's really been, again, kind of strangely satisfying of like, here's this software that I depended on for a long time and I still have a comfort level with it. But sometimes just doing things that are uncomfortable can lead to really positive stuff. And I also think failure is underrated. I'm a
Yeah.
big believer that, like, just because you failed at a task, or you were trying to get something off the ground and it just flopped or whatever, you can learn from that shit. In fact, most learning that you do is not going to come from the things that you easily attain. It's going to come from the things that you have to kind of fight and sweat and bleed to do.
Yeah.
Because the failure is the teacher. Success.
Failure is inevitable. Like
Yeah.
on everything, you will fail at something. The greatest technological advancements that we've had have been born out of failure.
Or
You know what I mean?
porn. Yes.
Oh, yeah. The computer. I use a Mac, and I have an iPhone. Like the whole Apple ecosystem and product base come off God knows how many incredibly shitty non-working computers, like that failed and broke and failed and broke and failed and broke. And you kind of have to get through that to get to the bit where, I'm not saying at the end of whatever you start doing is going to make you a billionaire, but there is a part of that failure and experience which makes you think about things differently, approach things differently. But above all else, I think there's also a bit of deserved humility in failing. I think it's I think you appreciate the journey more if the journey to get to that point has come with trouble. If it's given to you too easy, I think you don't appreciate the work that goes into it at all. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if we've set your mind at all at ease, Robert. But what I would say is it is never, like, genuinely. I even at this stage now, I've already been thinking about what I want to do 5 years from now, what I want to do 10 years from now, like as things I want to pick up, skills I want to learn. And yeah, you should always be that way, to the point where you literally get to the point in your life where you're like that. You know what? I've had enough. I'm gonna sit now. I've done my bit. I'm just gonna enjoy just sitting down and relaxing. So yeah, like just get like whatever it is, grab it with both hands, man.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And if Jimi Hendrix has taught us nothing else,
Yeah.
he had a great line in one of his songs where he said, "I'm the one who's got to die when it's my turn to die."
Yeah.
And that has carried with me since I was a teenager and I first heard it. And the underlying message of that is, if you want to judge me, feel free to, but you get absolutely zero say on the way I conduct my life, unless when it is my turn to die, you're going to raise your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way I see it, ain't nobody got that deal. So I'm gonna live my life exactly how I want to live it. Again, so long as I don't hurt anybody else, and that's real important to me too. Is that I want the people around me hopefully to lead a better life as a result of my presence in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you try to support people and try to make people at the end of the day feel good about themselves and your relationship with them. But beyond all that, I got a whole lot of fuck it in me too. Of just, yeah, I mean, well, I don't think that's a good idea. I kind of don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do, like, I may be proven wrong, and that's fine. And I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I have been wrong most times about most shit. But I'll at least I have enough, I think, humility to admit that and be able
Yeah.
to say, here is the thing I learned from this particular experience. I even hesitate to call it failure. It's just a thing that didn't work,
Yeah.
or a thing that didn't work for me personally or whatever. Like, I've tried shows where I'm like, this seems like a great idea, and you get 2 episodes in, you're like, this is not a great idea. And it just happens, like for whatever reason, stuff on the drawing board isn't the same as the stuff that in practice. And let your experience be your teacher in all of that. Like, do you enjoy the thing that you just picked up and started doing? Then keep doing it, and don't worry about the end result of where you're going to go. Unless, like Duncan said, you have a very specific idea. Like I said, being Spanish Shirley Temple, if that is your idea,
Yeah.
then, maybe go back to the drawing
If
board.
your goal is incredibly focused and niche, and it's and in the process you realize it's unattainable, and that is all you were doing it for to get to that point, then that journey, you need to call it as you see it there and then. However, if not attaining that journey, like the next level down, is totally something that still interests you, then yeah, by all means continue on with it. But you have to be true. Half of it is being true to yourself, what you actually doing this for, and making sure you're doing it for yourself and not someone else.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, for sure.
the reverses, like we were talking about what people judge you. Sometimes people just expect you to do certain things or be a particular way, and if you have no interest in it, and unless you're getting paid for it, like take a stand. It's your life. It's your time. So
Yeah. Right. I was having a conversation with my uncle about a week ago. And we were talking about, the podcasting stuff and the website. Like, this year has been very good for Legion, and we've been really pushing into new places and getting new listeners and getting new shows and stuff like that. Been really exciting. I was talking to him about it really enthusiastically. He has this real glazed look on his face because he didn't give a shit. And nor should he. It's not his thing. But what was funny is there's that immediate transfer as he's like, yeah, that sounds great. I gotta tell you, I just got this new putter. I don't know how much you golf, but I would, I tried it out for the first time last weekend when I got out on the links, and it was like we just traded expressions.
yeah,
Where that's also love, right? Like, I was happy that he was enthusiastic about it, and it was fun to see him light up about it, because certainly my podcast shit that didn't register at all. He didn't even know what I was talking about. But yeah, so that's the thing, is like, let people love the thing that they love, but also be sure that you don't harbor guilt because you love something that someone you respect or care about doesn't really care about your thing, just let
Yeah.
it be your thing. And if they love you, then they're going to love the fact that you love that thing, you know?
Indeed.
Anyway, that's all I got to say. Duncan, you got any last minute wisdom?
No, thanks very much for the question. No,
Yeah.
and more of those questions. Those are always a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Anything creative or anything like that. I think we all come from different backgrounds and we all have our own things. Me and Bo, that out with our mutual love of chatting about movies. One of the big things that kind of drew us together as like a podcast unit was the two of us had very, very specific views of what we wanted to do podcasting, and like the way we want to set things out, the way we tackle things, the way we approach subjects. And that in itself is what kind of was the grounding of our friendship and doing what we're doing. So these sort of things, when you raise them, they're just fun to talk about. So there you go.
It's always fun to talk about the creative stuff. Okay, let us turn our attention. Speaking of being creative, Duncan, let's get down to the business, the dark business we are here to conduct. And that is to discuss Slasher Season 2, the season this time called Guilty Party. Get it, Duncan? Because it was a party.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of guilty people.
Yes. Yes.
Episode 1 is called 6 Feet Under, which reminds you of a really good television show.
Boy, is that a good TV show.
It sure is. Written by our old pal Aaron Martin, returning from the first season, creator, writer, Aaron Martin of the Slasher
Genius.
series.
You forgot the word genius, Bo.
Auteur Aaron Martin returns to helm a new season. All right, so let's get into it.
Do you want to start with one of the many cliches that this show kicks off?
So, yes, we meet our group of idiots right off the bat, just hauling ass in a pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
And it is just like somebody threw cliches into a blender and hit puree.
This is more egregious than the previous season. Honestly, just this first episode.
Oh my goodness. And all right, we got a couple of girls kissing, so it's sexy and naughty.
Mm-hmm.
And they're drinking.
Mm-hmm.
There's people just hanging off the side of this thing. It looks like the Clampets are coming to camp.
It reminds me of what's the name of it's I Know What You Did Last Summer, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, there's a whole lot of Aaron Martin saw I know what you did last summer was like, but what if winter?
Yeah, but because literally this, the whole setup of kids and all that being drunk and driving their bit place recklessly and all that. It was the first thing I thought of. Actually, there's a bit we'll get to later on, but there was a bit where I was like, it does have shades of I Know What You Did Last Summer, and then he opened the door and walked into a cabin. I was like, oh, yeah, fuck off.
So
right off.
All right, so these goofballs, these camp counselors is who they are, and we'll get more intimate with them soon. They're having this big party out in the middle of nowhere, getting away from all the campers, leaving them, unattended for a little bit.
That's how you create a Jason Voorhees, by the way. You need to keep them on them, or a fucking hockey mask wielding force of nature will annihilate people for generations to come. You just don't leave the kids alone.
Duncan, I swear to God, if this is a secret prequel to Friday the 13th, everything I'm gonna say bad about it is completely erased. I don't think it's nearly that clever, but by God, if it is.
You link it at the end.
Right. Oh my God, Duncan. If that happened and you pull back and somebody changes the name of Camp Motega is the name of this joint. Mm-hmm. Somebody has scratched it out, now it says Camp Crystal Lake. Fuck. Yeah. I'm in. But so the kids stop the truck long enough to have a picnic where they're doing some shots. They're busting watermelons up like Gallagher. It's a real good time.
Just don't get that bit. Of all the things we're just going to bring loads of watermelons are not light, so we're just going to pack the van out with lots of watermelons that we're just going to smash.
Yeah,
there are other things you could bring to smash,
like televisions.
A very rock star of you, Bo.
Yeah.
No, I mean just in general, I don't get, because it's always like in my brain. I always think the practicalities of we've had to pack all this shit to travel out here to hoof it to the area that we're actually going to be smashing these watermelons for, 5 seconds of bliss to watch it explode. And then it was a weird choice, is what I'm saying.
It is a strange choice.
They're in the middle of nowhere as well. Where did they get all these watermelons?
Well, I mean, Duncan, it's not like watermelons are in short supply here in these United States. They're around everywhere. You can't swing a cat without hitting a watermelon.
I keep forgetting that you are a different country.
That's right. Like, watermelon is readily available in any store at any time.
Yeah.
So,
like, watermelon is so posh in Scotland that if someone mentions the word watermelon, everyone goes, "Ooh, watermelon! Ooh, pass me the gold teaspoon, Mr. Fauntleroy.
Yeah.
Ooh, my watermelon."
This little rich boy over here with his watermelon. Meanwhile, I'm like throwing it out in the yard for the squirrels to eat.
And Bo uses it for everything. Bo's like, "What's that? You crack your windscreen? Watermelon will fix that."
Yeah. We use it for cheap currency. It's like one watermelon equals a penny here. It's inconvenient, but it is taken as U.S. currency. They're hard to roll up in those little paper. Take them to a bank. I've got 50 watermelons in here. I'd like 2 quarters, please. So,
oh dear. So anyway, yeah, they're exploding some watermelons while downing shots. It seems like a great summer party for these wayward counselors.
Yeah, until one of them chimes in like, "Hey, I found us a watering hole,"
which is as warm as a bath.
Yeah,
and I went, ugh.
Yeah,
I don't like baths. Like, the idea of steeping in your own filth is not appealing to me, but
yeah, the last time I had a minor surgery was the last time I had to actually take a bath.
Yeah,
and yeah, it like taking a bath reminds me of being sick.
Yeah, there's something about it, it'll soothe you out, lying in your toxins.
Yeah. Well,
shower like a civilized person this class.
Dump a bunch of Epsom salt in this. Lie in here with your filth. The Epsom
feeling
salt.
Better now?
Yeah.
Are you feeling better now?
Yeah, just and and my doctor was like, "And you got to drink all the water when you're done." And I was like, "That seems like a lot." I was like, "Just do what I said. Also, don't call the police."
Yeah, and here's a watermelon for your trouble.
Yeah, that'll cost you 5 watermelons. I thought my insurance was covering this. Nope. So
they're all excited, and the whole team the whole trip leads off. But it's very, very quickly they realize, Bo, there ain't no warm bath watering.
Right. It is a Survivor like final meeting.
It's
where
2 steps away from being like a Wicker Man ceremony. They come up and like everything's clear.
Lit. It's
which once again, like, how did all that stuff end up there? Was that packed with a watermelon and no one noticed?
No, here's the thing, Duncan. They had to go up there ahead of time, set all this up, and then all this is done. There's a girl named Susan that they are kind of putting on trial. When she's like, "Why are you doing this to me?" They're like, "'Cause you're a nasty bitch." And it's like, well, that seems harsh.
Yeah, that's literally the line. Is "'cause you're a nasty bitch," and I was like, can we quantify that more? Like, and this, I imagine the show, and we're going to get into the format of it, is going to quantify it more and more the further we get into it via flashbacks. Yay. Because this is 5 years ago. So
right. Yeah. Yes. Important to note, this is all a prequel to the rest of the series, because Aaron Martin loves a flashback.
Oh, he loves. I mean, it's the setup to most slasher movies is a flashback. But everything has to be the flashback.
Right. But yes, what Aaron Martin did not learn is that you do it at the beginning and then maybe you do it at the end to reveal a little bit more.
Yeah. Not 4 times per episode.
Right. And this is going to follow the season 1 pattern, I can guarantee you right now, which is let's focus on this character. At the end of the episode, they're either going to be dead or we're going to learn that,
Yep.
here is another little tidbit to keep the story kind of moving. They're yet to find a Brenda. There's certainly
my
not a
God.
Brenda to be found in the first episode. Anyway,
this show needs a Brenda.
This town needs an enema, Duncan. And
A watermelon enema.
so they end up just kind of beating the shit out of Susan.
Yeah.
And then is it Peter? Is that the boyfriend's name?
So we don't. The thing is, she's a nasty bitch, right? And then we don't see anything until the after result, which is them dragging a burlap sack, which has a stain of blood on it, collectively as a group to some place to stash the body, like. And then there's all this kind of, it's all the usual shit of maybe we're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we're like this. And I'm like that. Why is this conversation coming up now after she's dead and you're dragging the body to bury it? Why did this conversation not come up before the torches were lit? It's always the same and it's fucking frustrating. And there's always two characters like, maybe I shouldn't do this. And then there's always one kind of bullshit character who's like, oh, she deserved it. So they're pulling her down, and as they're moving her along, the bag hits off a rock, and we find out that our victim isn't. I've been shot. I'm very badly burned, but I'm not dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that. It's totally like the not dead thing. And what happens is, oh man, this made me laugh more than I should, and this is why I'm going to hell. The bag rolls open, and their victim looks like the scene in Event Horizon where like somebody's like, well, we're going without need eyes. Like his face is all fucked up, and she comes at the bag like fucking like flop
like she got stabbed in the shoulder.
like she just like and they're all like, oh shit.
Well, and then it's Peter who's like, oh man, she's still alive. Well, this is like a chance for us to not be mmurderers.
This is the chance for us to turn ourselves in. And they're like, are you fucking high right now? Look at her. She's at death's door.
Right. And so Peter says, I'm going to take her to the hospital. And then this nerdy son of a bitch tackles him.
Yep. And that's cut.
Yeah. And so and they drag her away. It's the wreck thing of her dragging her nails on the ground and whatnot.
Yep. She gets dragged back. The guy who was suggesting that maybe they do something to save her. I would say maybe an hour and a half late and coming up with that decision. That's so we cut away from there, and then present day, Bo.
Yep. And we meet Andy, who is one of the ladies who was at the camp. She and her boyfriend, who is just another dude, not anyone related to the actual crime.
We don't need to worry about him at all.
Well, and we only need to worry about Andy so much, Duncan.
I'm still working out, like, after the end of this first episode here, I'm trying to work out who our Sarah is.
I think it's
Are we going to get one?
I think it's going to end up being the crazy cult lady. I think is maybe the heroine.
Yeah. I kind of had a thought that it might be the woman with a kid. So the one who has the Asian husband.
Oh, right. No, I think she's fucking dead.
Yeah, the only reason I thought that is because twice she said she didn't want to be involved with it in the flashback. And she has a kid, which usually it's not a full safety net, but in slasher movies usually means it's kind of partial safety net.
Right, but you have to understand, Aaron Martin wants it to be metal. So we're going to kill this mother. I think it's going to be that kind of slasher. Yeah. We're going to kill her, and she's got a kid. Anyway. So, Andy and her boyfriend are in bed. She hasn't slept, and the boyfriend is like, hey, listen, why do you have to go with all of your old camp friends 5 years almost to the day.
But like, yeah, why are you going to meet them? Why did you get up early? And then he hits out with, because we need to hammer home some cliches here. I just don't know what's up with you. I always feel like you're holding some from me, like a collective death of another.
Speaking of Sherlock Holmes, Duncan, this guy here, well, boy, it really seems like you're hiding something from me. No, I'm not. Shut up. You are.
Literally, is like that? I always feel like you're hiding something from me. She's sitting over there like fucking Christian Bale from The Machinist, all emaciated and shit.
Yeah. I said this to you privately. I was like, this actress looks like you took Sarah from the first season and dehydrated her like 30%.
She really does look like she's been put in like a dehydrator, because she's like, and she's just total like like the aging makeup that they use in the movie Warlock.
Yeah, sure. Like she's been life forced. Patrick Stewart goes, oh, hello. Come right into my office if you would. I made out with a man earlier.
You look a bit parched. Tea, Earl Grey, hot.
Yeah.
So
computer, give me a space vampire. Number one, she's quite small. So he's like, yeah, and the boyfriend is not having any of this. He's like, fine, I'm leaving. On account of what a charming personality you seem to have.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes off. Then we cut over to, I'm trying to get her name. I think her name is Susan.
Yeah, so I think the one we called Susan was the victim actually has an Indian name, which I'm struggling
with. Which is Talvinder is her name.
Yeah.
And Susan is kind of
Talvinder sounds like a Romulan, like linking back to Star Trek.
Talvinder.
It's Commandant Talvinder of the Tal Shiar.
Right. One of the people telling Picard, like, what is it? There are is it 3 cups? Is that what it is? Whatever the torture is.
Yeah.
So yes. How many cups?
There are 3 lights here. No, that's the wrong thing. You're thinking Cardassian.
That's right. They were the Cardassians.
You're off piste. You're off piste. Yeah. I love the fact that we almost had a full Star Trek conversation that made us sound like we knew what both of us were talking about.
Look, the fact that I mixed up the Romulans and the Cardassians is really the only thing wrong there.
So that is a hangable offense in Trekkie circles. So you're lucky that you're lucky you're safe where you are right now.
Yeah, this is a safe space for us. That's what I like about it. No one ever is mean to anyone on this show. So this girl Susan is packing up for the camp trip, and this is only notable because we see her throw a gun into the mix. Because look,
she can't close the bag. She can't close her suitcase because the gun's stopping it.
God, this gun is so big.
Yeah,
I just want sitting on top of it.
Yeah. I know what extreme firepower, but is there any chance I could have a pistol, please?
Oh my God, I gotta pick either my gun or my dildo. Both of them won't fit in here. I wonder if I can just put a little plastic sleeve on the end of the gun.
She should have got herself the old 10-inch black Yukon. Represent.
Good God.
That's a throwback. That's a Twin Peaks throwback.
You're right.
Remember?
You're right.
It was 10 inches of whoo.
It has been a long time since I thought about the black Yukon.
The black Yukon, is that the black Yukon sucker punch?
Yeah.
God,
yep. I do need to go back and listen to those episodes. I forgot about
They're so silly. They're so silly.
But yeah, so she's packing heat and she's heading to the woods. There's trying to remember all these knuckleheads' names. I think Ren is the nerd guy, maybe. Or Jonah, something like that.
I have not a fucking clue. I get the feeling, Bo, that by the time we work out who they are and remember their names, they're not going to be cast anymore.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. So anyway, so we got the nerdy dude who's taken off, and he just looks shifty and guilty as fuck.
Yeah.
Then there's Peter. Let me make sure I got that name right. Yeah. So
Peter's
Peter
right, yeah.
is the one who was trying to get Tal to safety. Talvinder, our Romulan spy, at this camp. Maybe that's why they were killing her. Maybe that's the real secret we're going to learn. They've learned that she was working with
there are 3 flame pyres there.
So, Talvinda, I notice you're very interested in the way we run the ship.
Shift rotor. Asked one too many questions at the archery session.
Yeah. Oh, you want to hang out with Geordie and see how all the engines work, do you? Well, Talvinda. Sounds like a real exchange of ideas. So...
already.
But anyway, so Peter is writing a letter to Mr. and Mrs. Gill, who apparently are Tal's parents.
Mm-hmm.
So her name is Talvinder Gill.
Which makes her sound totally like a Ron.
Right. Talvinder Gill, you say? He's coming. Oh, it's a she. Oh, yes. The Romulans are very progressive, yes.
Talvinder Gill. Yeah, but he's writing this letter out, which...
Wait. Duncan, I gotta stop you for something that just popped up in the chat. Because we have to address this immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Alan points out that the camp name here is where deputy executioner is how he puts it. That's where he met Molly Malone in the first season. So this is...
I thought I recognized it. I genuinely thought I recognized the name. And that makes sense, but that's not the only crossover with season 1, which we're going to get to when they, for some reason, American Horror Story Project, one actor, the most unlikely actor from season 1 into season 2. And what I'm just going to say is I typecasted almost identically the same role.
Well, we'll see. If he becomes a pal of someone later to just hang out and
he's
drink.
Totally becoming a pal of someone later on. You know what's happening. So all I'm going to do is drink outside and complain.
So then I think Akira is the Asian girl.
Akira?
Akira, yeah. Yeah, Neo Tokyo is about to explode, Duncan. And she is taken off. She's the one that, as you pointed out, she's got a husband and a kid.
Which made me think potential final girl, but I think you're probably right, Bo.
Right. The kid will find her body. My Aaron Martin is just him getting very excited about the worst possible thing he could do in a television show.
Playing air guitar during a writing session for no reason at all, like a real dickhead.
Yeah. Are you sure that that seems a little, I don't know, nihilistic and pointless in this story? Yeah. Just right when I tell you, I'm Aaron Martin. Anyway. So she's taken off and she's with Andy, Susan, the nerdy guy whose name I can't remember now, and Peter.
Yes.
And
they're in the worst road trip ever because the radios. Right. This scene did make me laugh. I just want to say,
yes,
I did chuckle at this because the radio's on the blink, right? And then eventually she switches it off. And then nerdy guy out of nowhere decides to sing the old camp song and gets about 2 verses. And he's looking around as if to say, this will get them all going like that. And he just finishes the second line. And Susan, who is the real see you next Tuesday of this whole season, turns around and tells him to shut the fuck up. Which I just thought was brilliant.
Look, Susan is a thoroughly unlikable character, but she is also the only one that seems to be the audience surrogate.
She is literally, every step that Susan says in this, as reprehensible as it is, I'm kind of with. Right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely shut the fuck up.
Like at every stage, even later on where she's being really fucking bullshit about people's particular choices, I'm like, if I was in the same position, I'd side with Susan. Like, Susan looks like she might survive, although Slasher will subvert that expectation very soon, probably.
Right. She's gonna die by her own gun.
Unless Susan is the killer.
I don't think, like we called Cam from last season from the cheap seats.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be another dude. I think it's going to be a woman.
You think
so? That's the plot twist. And I don't know why I think Susan, but Susan's the one that arranged for them all to go back up there. She's the one that appears to be all over this. So
I think it's the dude who looks like Mark Strong. We'll get to him in a minute, but he's
a fat Mark Strong.
He's Mark Weak.
Mark Carb Overload. Can I get an amen?
Yeah, right. Mark Stromboli. You're not going to throw that out, are
you? Mark Stroganoff.
I like this extra sour cream, if you don't mind. And anyway, so our group of ne'er-do-wells, they show up at this kind of Northern Outfitters store, which is a roadside, last stop kind of grocery before you hit the mountain.
That has to be because it's a slasher.
Right.
We have to stop.
You're going to Camp Matoke, are you?
Well, literally what the dude does. He's a more practical way of doing it, but they arrive and there's a guy there who's going to take them up in what do they call those things again?
Snowmobiles.
Not snowmobiles. But he's literally like telling them one, why do you want to go up there? Two, it's deceptively cold out here. I should know. We get a whole backstory to this guy, which turns out to be fucking pointless. Absolutely, because he's like, I served 2 tours. I once saw a man freeze to death. Like all this stuff where I'm like that. He's like, fuck's sake, like this is the real deal here. This is a goddamn survivalist.
Yeah.
And he snowmobiles them up, and we find out that they're going back to the old camp that they were there 5 years ago. We still don't know why they're doing it yet, but they're going up there as a kind of reunion, but going up in the winter time during the heavy snow.
Yes. And I like the whole time that they're prepping to leave, Susan is just hanging out in the SUV. They're like, are you going to help? And she's like, no. It's cold out there. I don't know shit about snowmobiles. What am I going to do? Fix it?
And I'm like, with her, once again, I'm like, yeah, you know what? The last thing I need right now is some valley girl hanging over me while I'm trying to fix a snowmobile. Thanks very much, Susan. High five.
Yeah, smoke your cigarette in the snowy mountain air and hang out in the SUV. Just keep out of everybody's way. She's not hurting anybody. And what do you want her to do? Change the oil on one? She's not gonna do that. Susan, that ain't how Susan rolls.
She only knows how to change the oil of a man's penis.
If you want to get into a very exclusive club, Susan is your girl.
She front and center.
Yes.
You put her front and center.
Right.
See if it is, I don't know, any sort of maintenance or repair of a vehicular persuasion. Susan is not your girl. Susan is at the back of that line.
Right. And also Peter is kind of circling Andy because clearly they were a thing.
Oh, we will find more about this, Bo.
And
we will find more about this.
Andy kind of blows him off though. She doesn't want any part of him. And he's like, I really should have called you, but I didn't know what to say. And she's like, get out of here. And so
I really should have called you sometime in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But now I'm facing you. I admit that freely.
Right. Now that I'm forced to face my mistakes. And so Gene is this dude that owns, he's our Crazy Ralph, Crazy Gene.
Crazy Gene, yeah.
He takes them up to the camp, which has been purchased by a kind of a collective.
Heaven's Gate, maybe, Bo, is all I could think of. They're like fucking woolly, hippie, fucking yoga hugging vegans.
Yeah. And the name of this joint is called We Live as One. And as we...
The Borg! It's the fucking Borg! Oh my God.
We live as one, number one. This doesn't sound encouraging. Last time we found a bunch of people wanting to live as one. They wanted to incorporate us all. Assimilation, remember that?
It's totally the Borg. It's all coming Star Trek. So.
Look, if anyone asks, my name is Locutus. None of this Jean-Luc shit while we're up here, number one.
Do not break character.
Yeah. I swear to God, number one, if you call me anything other than Locutus, I'm going to have Geordie transport you into my asshole. So,
And then you will come out as number 2.
yeah. You've seen Ant-Man. You're going to be Pooh Man. Computer, make it so. So...
This is not where I thought the conversation was going to go when we started. Oh, I'm so happy. So we're busting out old references. This is like old DBCC.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. I'm very pleased by all this as well. So we get our first like outside the cold open flashback of this episode, where it's in theory our heroine. I know this game. I wrote Lost After Dark, Duncan. I know how to do this bullshit. Setting her up as the main character. And Andy is giving orientation to Talvinder, the girl that they would later, of course, beat the shit out of. And it's clear like Andy and Peter are dating because he kind of shows up after she's given the orientation to Talvinder. And Peter, who will be played, I think, by Jean-Luc Picard. I think he's our Jean-Luc. He shows up and is like, oh, well, look at what we have here. 2 very attractive young women.
He's like instantly flirty. And a way where I was like that, your girlfriend is right there, dude.
He makes a classic mistake here in a minute. But Andy then is nice enough to say, hey, tonight we're going to watch this slasher movie. Why don't you come watch? And Talvinder is like, well, let me report back to Romulan base. And then, yes, I think I have some time. And then she takes off, and Peter is, playing all apologetic with Andy about not showing up on time. And it's clear early on, like, oh, this is going to be a lover's triangle kind of thing.
Yeah. They're like straight away. This might be the catalyst for what goes down.
Yes. So then we are introduced to Robin from season 1, who is now playing, I don't care, another character, but he's just going to be Robin.
Yeah, he's now playing another Robin. And this time, instead of selling houses, he is spiritual leader / masseuse. This commune.
This is a very Northern California kind of vibe that he's throwing off.
Yeah, if you've ever seen it, I would recommend everyone check out the documentary Holy Hell, which is just an entire documentary full of Robins.
Yeah, Robin is a dude in this season who knows a lot of Reiki.
Yes,
has certification in Reiki and shit. That's this dude.
Yes, that is literally what he's playing. But as a result of that, he will be the surrogate. Tell me your problems. Why are you holding back? That's his role, which, by the way, was his role in season 1. And weird that he's the guy to transfer over from seasons.
Yeah.
Actor-wise, you know what I mean? He feels like did our fancy director see something in that end scene where he was showing that family around that house and go, you know what? We need more of this guy. This guy has depths we've yet to reach in the medium of TV. Wait till season 2, where I cast him in almost identically the same fucking role.
I wonder if he knew no one else was coming back, and he's like, "Oh, It's all mine. Slasher belongs to Robin now."
That was if you're the last one.
This time I'm gonna be the star, right? Yeah. You're gonna be the star.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, star.
Yeah. So, the kids show up at this cabin, and Robin has to be like, namaste, everyone. Excuse me for a moment while I go greet our guests.
Yeah.
And it turns out that there's, they're a big communal living group, and we live as one, aka resistance is futile.
AKA resistance is futile. They try a very Borg scene later on, and a Brimley-esque character who just wants a steak.
Oh, yeah. I do.
Yeah.
there's also a moment later where they all kind of commune together. That's very funny.
Yes.
But right, anyway, Robin and his group are allowing these kids to kind of come up and stay in the cabin because the idea is that they told the Borg that they
the open negotiations with the Borg for
right,
one weekend.
It turns out we're going to be spearheading the mission. It's weird because I've been on both sides of this, number one.
They open negotiations to use the conference suite of the Borg cube for one weekend.
Yeah.
What's the reunion party?
I've got to tell you, number one, this is sort of a reverse Alien versus Predators situation. No matter who loses, I win. Oh, the Borg came out on top? Welcome home, Locutus. So...
there is that kind of feeling where you get the feeling that Robin has maybe done all this without necessarily making sure that his collective, his cube, are all signed off on it, as you will find out later on when dissension appears in the ranks. Very unmorg. But yeah, this is like he goes out to greet them, and they're passing it off as, you know, this is a 5-year reunion, and they're all getting together back at the camp where they shared so many great memories and did not murder anyone. And yeah, that's kind of the setup. But Jean's there, and for whatever reason, Jean's still kind of tight with these people because he's obviously their only source of, I would imagine, food, fuel.
Right. It's just, I would think, kind of company. Like they are the people he seems to know on the mountain and kind of trust them to some degree.
Yeah.
And the kids go to their cabin, and here we kind of learn the true purpose.
They go to their cabin all acting normal and until the door's shut with this thin wooden walls, and that's when they go, "We fucking killed a girl."
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, no. We know where the towels are. Thank you. All right, we'll see you later. Shut. All right, everybody, we got to find this fucking body. Everybody on board with this.
So the story is basically that this commune is going to expand, right? So the plans are to expand it, and they're going to be building out onto further ground, and that ground may or may not abut the particular area where our Romulan spy was buried. So their plan is, and this is all, Susan's worked this out, so Susan's reconvened them all. So the plan is that they are going to dig up the skeleton. Very kind of, this has kind of got like almost like a kind of Goodfellas vibe, you know, where they're like, in Goodfellas, I'm sure I've seen where they bury someone and then, as or not, there's going to be a building built or something, so they have to go out and fucking dig up a body. It also happened in Sopranos. But like, they basically have to go out there to dig up the skeleton to remove the remains before they're found. But this is the bit that confuses me. So the police, when the girl went missing, the police had an idea, one of the group of friends who, he might be the killer.
Right. Owen. His
he
name
might be
is
the killer
because
we didn't see the body. But anyway, that might be who it is. See if I've worked that out right now. That's going to piss me off as well. But anyway, so they kind of thought Owen had did it. And the police investigation never quite got Owen convicted. And now Owen is dead.
Right.
So the case kind of stopped there. So, and Susan's all for this, but Susan's friend, the one with the son, Akira, like she basically, she's like the one at this point where I'm like, can this bitch kind of talking sense? Because she's like that. Listen, they almost pinned it on him. If they find the body, they are going to pin it on him. He's dead. And Susan's like, well, no, what happens in that circumstance is that the police then come back to speak to us. And if our stories are not all 100% synced up, okay, then we're all going, bye, to prison. So, yeah, and I'm like, yeah. Once again, Susan kind of speaking truth to power, get rid of the bones. So that's what they're there for. But once again, the wounds of 5 years ago are still there. And that some of them are kind of pro-Susan, some of them are anti-Susan, and some are sheeple that will, side with the alpha. So that's what we're here to do, and that's the 10 years likeness brought them back 5 years later, and yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to the Borg, where Robin and his wife are kind of cleaning up as Gene, our crazy Ralph
Yeah.
of the show, are just kind of chit chatting about like, yeah, it is kind of fucking weird, right? That they came up in the middle of winter,
Yeah.
and Robin is like, well, it is a powerful place up here. There are a lot of ley lines around and whatnot. And while he's, talking about all the spiritual energy of the place, Gene is like, well, if it's so spiritual, how come you're selling it? And Judith, who's kind of the older lady who I think is going to be a big part of this somehow, she is a little bit of an older lady, probably late 40s, something like that, early 50s. And she is really having a hard time dealing with the fact that all these strangers have shown up.
Mhm.
And Mark Stroganoff is the one who's like, no, 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 it's going to be cool. Listen, you got any garlic bread, or is there... I mean, like, I know it's not lunch, but we got something to snag on. I mean, that yoga really took something out of me. And Gene it says like, hey, I'm gonna stick around for the weekend, and I'm just gonna make sure that these kids are cool. Is that
Yeah.
you guys have a problem with that? And they're like, yeah, that sounds good. And then everybody but Gene kind of hugs, and they start going, it's really weird.
Yeah, and Gene's like, you guys still got that sauna?
Right, yeah, it's like, you know what? You guys do whatever it is that you're gonna do. I assume fuck.
Yeah,
Eh,
which I don't want to be any part of.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just very complicated for me right now. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna head up to the sauna. Take 5. You guys enjoy your humming. And we see that somebody is kind of watching from the woods while Gene is like getting in the sauna, and he's just kind of hanging out in there, and somebody just hums a snowball at the door, real like thunk, and he's like, the fuck? So he goes outside for a second, and he's like, hey, anybody out here? He's throwing fucking snowballs out here.
I'm trying to relax right now. I've had a busy day of ferrying fucking kids up a fucking snowy hill, and then I almost got involved in an unwanted orgy. I just want to relax. Can I get fucking 5 minutes in the sauna, please? Please.
Right. And the answer to that is no, because
No.
as soon as he goes outside, nobody's there, goes back inside, here's another thunk, and he comes out real loaded for bear, like, you crazy kids, I'm gonna. And as soon as he opens the door, our killer just jams a chainsaw
He
right
gets
through his
pieces.
gut. Yeah, he gets pieces
Because-
did. And
while you kids were out here fumbling trying to find that skeleton, Gene was up there getting killed. Bastards!
you bastards! Oh, that movie.
Like, so we get a chainsaw through the chest to begin with, and it goes up and then splits him down through the bottom, and then some intestines fall to the ground. The director and writer of this show has literally ejaculated hard in his pants to the sound of pumping AC/DC, and that's Gene dead.
Right, and it does that kind of directorial joke. And I will say that's the one thing Slasher at least goes for is
Yes.
when the opportunity presents itself, it gets gory as fuck. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate that
has-
to some degree.
Kind of has to, like, because
Yeah.
it doesn't have anything else going for it.
Right,
though.
that's all you
Like-
got. It's literally all you got. But there's that directorial joke of you see the guts hitting the floor,
Mhm.
and then you see a steak flipped over and
It
dropped
says
in
on
a
stage,
pan.
Yeah. So
It's-
it's like, yeah,
it's
it's kind of cool. But
Yeah,
we
it's-
have our kind of our Brimley-esque character here who apparently has he's cooking a steak. He joined the commune, which we find out is a vegan commune, but he joined the commune. He's still in probationary period, and he has since arriving. He doesn't take part in any of the yoga or the Reiki or any of that stuff. He just sits and eats red meat. And I'm kind of like, this guy's my spirit animal.
I just want to come up here because the goddamn woods and quiet.
Well, because he's literally, the thing about him is he's kind of, and I love the conversation because he's kind of playing it against him. He's like, well, no, you're all like up here for communal living and, off the grid and, be true to yourself and all the rest. Well, true to myself is make a fucking steak.
Yeah.
And, like,
I love meat. I'm going to eat steak. You want some?
She's like, we are trying to make this vegan. And he's like that. If you can cook me a tofu steak that tastes like that, then I will, like, no meat for this guy. But until that day, meat.
Yeah. I really like Noah, who is our nerd. I do have it in my notes.
Noah, that's right. Yeah, Noah.
So
yeah.
Noah shows up because he's like, can I borrow some coffee? And Glenn is in the process. I genuinely like this line. It's really stupid, but I like it. Where after he says, if you can get some goddamn tofu tastes like this steak, then I'm 100% vegan. Until then, you can move along. That's like a cow. Dude, I
total Brimley joke.
Yeah. Glenn he's not in it enough to be a Brenda yet, but he's got a little bit of that Brenda DNA that we need.
Could Glenn be the killer?
Possible. I still think it's Mark Stroganoff, but we'll get to that. And
these 2 bullet holes that he won't explain.
Yeah, right. Like I guarantee you, he is related to like this Owen dude.
Yeah,
that he's up there to solve the mystery. Something is up.
Yeah.
Anywho, either that or we'll talk about it later. So Gene, the wife is there to say that Gene is going to be staying with him for a while, and Glenn's like, fine, I don't give a shit. You guys be careful out there. I'm going to sit here and eat my goddamn steak. And
it does give Noah one of those conversations where it's like that. If you get lost out there, there's no one that can help you.
Yeah. Out there in the dark, in the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. So he sends them off to go be knuckleheads. And so they take these snowmobiles. I almost call them snowmobiles. Snowmobiles out to this pile of sticks and rocks that they use to bury Tal's body. Talvinder's body. Here lies Talvinder Gill. Serve the Federation honorably.
The legend of the Tal Shah. Commanded the Romulan fleet in the Battle of Schmagabar.
Number one, they want me to give a eulogy, and I did not know Talvinder Gill at all. I read a couple of articles, but I'm really winging it here. Flying by the seat of my pants, number one. I didn't know this fucker. So they open up this hidey hole. Sure enough, no body. And then we cut back over to We Live as One, where our old lady, whose name is Judith, is doing some old-fashioned thigh cutting.
Yeah, so like she's a self-harmer, so she like rolls up the kind of housecoat thing to reveal like a bit of a scarred leg, and she's about to do it, and then the door gets knocked, and it's Stroganoff that comes in, isn't it?
No, it's a younger dude.
That's right. Yeah. Young dude comes in, and he's like, well, sorry for interrupting you. She's like, oh, you didn't interrupt me. As I hide away my razor blade, I'm just startled. He's like, what do you think about all these kids coming up here? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, maybe we don't trust them. Maybe we don't let our guard in. And she's like, right. So they're going to keep an eye on these. We're going to keep an eye on these wayward kids, or as I like to call this, Operation Red Herring.
Yes.
So this is very much a red herring moment. And yeah, so the body's missing. Half the camp doesn't care that they're there. The other half does care that they're there. One of them cooked a mean-ass steak, and he's our favorite character. Gene, the superhero, is dead. Crazy Gene is dead. And what I would imagine is a very messy kill scene to clean up.
Oh, yeah. Like, fortunately, it seems to be out of the
wooden flooring and a sauna. Blood hits that ain't coming out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you're always going to know that happened there.
Yeah, that room is always going to, like, whenever you put the water over the coals, that room is going to taste of blood.
But the best thing you can hope for here is that your insurance is going to cover a replacement, because the floor has got to come up. Anyway, cut to a scene up at. Oh no, apologies. We're back with the kids at the cabin. Almost skipped ahead of this.
So they've just closed the door. So yeah, thanks very much. Yeah. Oh, we know when dinner is. It's not a problem. Close the door. Right, guys. What the fuck are we going to do right now? We are fucked.
Yeah.
And so Susan's all out with the "we are fucked."
Yes.
She's like that. Someone's fucking with us. Someone's doing something. I'm not happy about it, but we need to stay together, guys. And this is when Peter, or as I like to call him, Idiot, in this scene, Peter comes up with this idea, and that idea is that they all just go to the police.
Right. Look, I was talking to the computer about it, and we're all going to have to get the hell out of here. The police are going to catch us.
The computer says there's a 73% chance that we'll all do time, but there's a 27% chance that we'll all be set free. Isn't that right, computer? Does not compute. Yes, I see. The numbers do not lie. Make it so.
I might have to bang it like Ziggy.
It's like he's like, and for a second, was it Andy?
Yeah.
Andy kind of is like, yeah, maybe this is what we should do. And once again, Susan has to be the voice of reason here and say, and what do we actually say?
Right.
That it was a prank that went wrong, or we murdered the girl. Is that what we're going to do? And we're all just gonna do that. And then Peter comes over with a great line. He's like, let's be honest here. How many of you are actually happy in your life? Like, how many people have been able to leave this behind them, or how many people are living this?
This is why I think Susan dies, is because she's the first that's like, me, I'm cool. I got a husband and a kid. I don't need any of this bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go right now.
Yeah, but then Susan's the one that convened them all to go up there, which is the weird thing. It's like the duplicity of, I'm fine, I'm resolute in this, but at the same time, we all need to get up here and remove this skeleton. She's very practical about it, but Andy's the one who is kind of, she's open and honest. She's like a husk of herself. Mm-hmm. She's a bit emaciated, and she wants this put over. Maybe that's what we should do. And like Susan calls bullshit because she says, like, you don't speak for all of us. And she's like, well, let's put it to a vote then. You want to play that game? You want to play the numbers game here? Let's play the numbers game, Andy. Who wants to go to the police? Oh, just two. Who doesn't want to go to the police? Oh, look, three. I think the threes have it. So both Andy and Peter leave the room, and they follow the grand tradition of people that have listened to this show, and they follow our advice, Bo, because they get down to some fucking.
Right. It's a real guilt fuck too, where it's like, I feel really guilty. Yeah, so do I. I'm quite guilty. I'm guilty of having a boner.
But we get another flashback now. So our flashback again is to the showing of the slasher movie. Mm-hmm. And it's really is the most awkward third wheel situation here, unless you're Peter, because you think you are in for a menage and you ain't getting that twat. They're sitting they're sitting watching this, what looks to be probably comparably bad slasher movie in relation to this show. And our Romulan secret agent keeps going, oh, every time, so, oh, that's, and like, oh, I'm such a lightweight, oh. And Andy's like,
I understand human males feel a need to protect frightened females.
Well, Andy realizes there's no popcorn in this bowl left, so she goes away to get some after Peter says he's kind of going to do it. She's like, no, I can get it. And then there's, I was going to say harmless flirting. This goes beyond harmless flirting, because this ends up with a Romulan under a sheet right beside Peter, and the two of them are making the fuck out of each other, Bo.
This is all Peter's fault. As soon as he says, would you like to come under the blanket with me? Yeah. As soon as he says that, this is your fault.
Yes.
You treat this like you are, a doctor, examining a female patient where you got somebody else in the room, you've got consent forms everywhere. Yeah. If this is a brand new lady to the camp, and unless, like you said, unless you're playing for the menage, and I don't think he's playing for the menage.
But the only way you ever play for the menage is when you know for a fact that your partner has fully signed off on this and has left you with the duty of finding the second.
Yes, if you are a guy, a menage happens when the woman you're with says, I've been thinking about maybe doing something a little spicy in the bedroom, that is it. You do not bring it up. You
No.
do not. You never ever go near that. It is the relationship landmine.
Yes.
And only a woman can defuse it.
Yes.
So
100%, 100%. And but he invites her under, and she's still doing it. And then we essentially leave that scene. And this show is not subtle with these flashbacks, so we understand straight away they fucked, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, the show doesn't take that long until, once again, in the tradition of slasher where they set up something like, well, did they? Like, the next scene, they say that they fucked. So, it's like, we've learned nothing here. Storytelling, the suspense is never in this show. It's always like, set up something, answer straight away.
Yes. And speaking of setting up and knocking them down, Mark Stroganoff gets a massage from Robin.
He's trying to sell my house.
Yeah. Yeah, Robin's like, hey, so you're interested in some property up here? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm $2 million in the hole that they did not address in the previous season. This is why I'm here living off the grid.
He changed his name and is hiding in the woods. I get it. Good job, Robin. He's like, as soon as he sold the murder house, he was gone. Got a little cash in his pocket and fled the scene. Yeah, but and they're kind of chit-chatting about there's bullet holes, as you were mentioning earlier, in Mark Stroganoff's shoulder, the like scars of bullets he's taken, clearly.
Yeah, and until he explains these bullets, he will always be locked off to the grip wall.
That's right. And like Robin's kind of touching him and giving him a little massage. He's like, until you can open up about that day. And Mark Stroganoff is like, shut up, massage over. I'm going to go get something to eat. And so he takes off outside to like some gazebo where Andy is having a post-coital smoke because
she just had a big bust up with Peter. And that bust up involved essentially, like, I kind of loved that. Andy became the Sarah.
The Susan. No, she Susan, totally channels Susan.
She was like, because like after sex, like they're both lying there and Peter's
she's
like,
thinking clearly because it's after sex. For the first time in weeks, she's like, oh shit. Yeah, finally, I can concentrate on something.
Yeah, like, and Peter's like that. So we're going to go down and speak to this police department. And she's like, oh, I don't know about that. And he's like, what do you not know? And she's like, well, let's play this out. We go down there, we do time. Like, but it's okay, we're a couple. And we don't get conjugal visits because that doesn't work. Because we're both arrested. But at the end of it, we come out and we've got criminal records and no career. And we're a bit older and we have to move into a halfway house and we're on social security. And so, I mean, is that the life that you want? And he's like, you're kind of being mean right now.
You're bumming me out a little bit, Andy.
Harshing my buzz. And she's like, well, that's what you're saying. And he's like, well, why are you speaking to me like this is kind of my fault? And she's like, well, it is your fucking fault. And he's like, oh, really? Look at Andy, always playing the victim.
Yeah.
And then we jump to her having a cigarette outside, all angry now, clear-headed and angry. Dangerous combination, Bo.
Yes.
And Stroganoff comes out like smoking a whole baguette.
When he comes out, Andy's smoking, and he's like, if you ever want to, go get something to eat sometime and just talk about your problems or something. I'm around. Like, I know a pretty good diner here in town. It takes a while to get there, but man, they do some scrambled eggs. I'll blow your mind. I know scrambled eggs. Everybody makes scrambled eggs. This place is really, really good scrambled eggs. I have like 3 or 4 of them. And she's like, "Oh, you're just out here to give me some speech about your stupid commune?" And he's like,
"Yeah.
Honestly, I just want one of those cigarettes. I'll tell you, I had a big meal a minute ago, and nothing is better after a big meal than a cigarette." And
yeah, so he kind of tries to help her by saying,
"Duncan, if I could,
yeah."
She gives him the one she's already smoking, which is a real dick move.
Well, yeah,
give him a fresh one.
Well, she's going to be paid back in full for this in a minute. So,
this is why she dies.
This is why she dies.
Spoilers.
Yeah, like I don't like. Does anyone care, Bo?
Yeah. Also, it happens in like 2 minutes from now. But
so, like, basically, she explains that she and Peter have this sort of relationship where ultimately every time they try and reconcile, they end up getting in an argument. He always, I'm assuming, always throws it back that she likes to be the victim, which she hates. And Mark Stroganoff here kind of calls it like he sees it, which is kind of how Peter sees it. It's like, well, maybe that's you're the one that keeps putting yourself in that position by speaking to him. So maybe there is a part of you that likes to be the victim. You know, there's a degree of pain and pleasure, very Cenobite. There's a degree like pain and pleasure that comes from being the victim. You're validated because all the attention is on you, but the negative side is the way you have to achieve it is by like conflict or turmoil. But you know, the only way you can get out of that habit is by breaking that yourself. So it gives us some, like, I would say, some fucking great advice. Like,
genuinely, yeah, it's sort of this notion of like, just you've got to leave everything on the field. Don't keep anything inside. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with the people around you. Yeah, I mean, it is good advice.
Yeah, it's DBCC worthy advice. And she's like, all right, cool. So she then arranges to meet Pete.
Right. She's going to go. Right. The idea is like, hey, we're going to go get Talvinder Gill, try to find Talvinder Gill's body, return the body to the Romulans.
Yes.
And at that point.
And time to save the peace treaty.
Right. It's a race against the clock. Quite exciting for this episode. And so they're going to go find this body. And Andy shows up with this shovel, and instead of finding Peter, she finds, one presumes, the body of Talvinder Gill.
Which we're going to get into why it can't be at the end of this episode. So we have well, I think it is.
Yes.
But we're going to find out why it can't possibly be. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, but the body's all hung up, and there's like, I mean, it's all blackened, and the hair's still attached, and it's all kind of withered with the clothing. It's all strung out in a particular way. And while she's horrified looking at this skeleton, our mass killer runs up behind her and smacks her in the back of the head with a bit of wood.
Dude, I love this shot. Because
it's a great shot.
It's a real wind up of the dude like running towards her from behind with the wood cocked.
It reminds me, in the Friday the 13th remake, in the first 20 minutes of that movie is legit great, and then the rest is diminishing returns every 10 minutes it's on the screen. But the first 20 minutes is great, and there's a scene like where it's right at the bit where they get the close in the credits, where they have Jason basically running with a machete like straight towards the camera, and you just never saw him move that fast or anything like that. But the way the shot is set up from the kind of ground level looking at it, it's fucking brilliant. And it made me like always think, why does he not do more running? Always running. But you get this as well, and I really like it. I'll applaud them because of Snow. I love Snow. As I said, we don't have enough snow-based slasher movies that I love, but the idea of him like running silently, trudging through the snow towards her, the camera kind of out of focus and then focusing in as it comes into the back to hit her. It's a great fucking shot.
Yeah.
The next, like what happens to Andy is fucking ridiculous, but we'll get to that in a second. 'Cause that's not how blood works. But basically, like Peter's out trying to find her.
I told her I was going to meet her up here with a shovel. I hope she brought one.
Yeah, where is she? Why is she away here? This feels weird.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Andy is tied to the ground.
Yeah. Staked on the ice, arms spread.
It's not ice, it's snowball, which is the first thing. Like, with a good wiggle, that stake's coming out. Like, you know what I mean? It's fucking snow. It's not like, it's not concrete, but she's doing a Sarah. She's like,
She is, she seems very upset. And this killer who is just like in, a pile of clothes and hoodies and jackets and stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing really.
Reminds me of the killer from Don't Go Into the Woods Alone, if you've ever seen that.
I have not seen that.
Terrible slasher movie from 1981. It basically is just it's like patchwork killer.
Yeah.
He's just like clearly wardrobe were having an off day. Just like wore whatever he wanted, and that's what the killer had to look like. It's kind of like that. But he stands over her, and then a puncture in either side of the neck, and then Peter ultimately finds her, but he finds her bled out, lying, and the blood has resembled the pattern of angel wings.
Every time a killer strikes, an angel gets its wings. That's
Now,
right. That's right.
The only way that could have possibly happened, because the neck is up here, Bob, is if the only way that could have possibly happened is if the killer then ferried the blood down and then in some sort of art attack, like started setting up like a weaver, which just feels like very elaborate and very over the top.
Or
And that's
just to really pump it out, like he grabs her ankles and just really shoves to push the. Yeah,
it's like one of those old fashioned wells where you have to use the pump handle.
Yeah, I was thinking of like those rail cars, like the two people rail cars.
Try to get every last drop out. Like, that's not like the blood's going to come out a little bit, but the heart's going to stop pretty quick, and then the blood's not going to come out anymore. The only way that would happen is if she was upside down, and the blood was left to drain out. But anyway, like, those practicalities aside, Peter arrives too late, sees her dead, and I'm like, well, is that the police are going to get called, surely. And then we switch back to the cabin, and won't you know it, Robin can't make a connection to Tim.
Right. No, there's no way to call.
Jean's vanished. And Peter's sitting there just like spaced out, and the woman whose name I forget, who's kind of like the wife, who's really she is the leader of the commune, pretty much. She's like, I think you need to take him back to his room so he can, he can even out, and he's went through a lot of trauma, maybe get a sleep or whatever. And we'll keep trying to phone the sheriff and see if we can get the sheriff out here, but the connection sometimes drops off, and it can sometimes take a while before it reconnects. So we'll see what we can do. I mean, out with that, there's not a lot that can be done. And we ultimately finish this episode by jumping back to another flashback.
Oh, wait, no, because we go back to the cabin first, Duncan.
Yes, right, yes.
Because they open up the cabin where they're like, yeah, everything's great up here. Holy shit, you guys. And then...
This is the bit where I audibly said, oh, fuck off. Because I was thinking to myself, this does has a kind of, I know what you did last summer feel. And they go to the cabin and close the door, and...
And it says, I know what you did 5 years ago at camp.
It says, I know what Y-O. Yeah. It doesn't want no you.
Yeah. Well, it was probably off camera.
I was thinking, is this a nod to You're Next? Because in the movie You're Next, if memory serves, the original You're Next that's written on the wall is missing the inverted comma. So I think... like for you are next, which is what should be as opposed to while you are.
Maybe I like that. I feel is giving Aaron Martin a little more credit than maybe
like
I want.
The set design, they put the wrong guy in the set design to do the guy who's not good at English. So they see that there's a kind of
hired a union crew up there that's all Spanish speaking. I need you to write. I know that you killed Talvinder Gill at camp.
See. Okay.
Yeah, you got it. No K's. Just write it. Okay.
See.
No C. Well, maybe there's a C. I don't. Just get it done. Okay. Anyway.
We jump to the flashback. So in the flashback, we get the elongated scene after the Talvinder getting dragged off the stone and Peter getting dragged down to the ground, and this argument continued out with Talvinder eyes clawed to fuck, right, barely being able to see against a rock, just going, I won't tell anyone, and Susan's like, this bitch has to go.
Yeah right. But while they're debating, it's like you see Andy in the background, and she has that moment where she's like, enough of this bullshit.
Yep.
And so she just grabs a big ass rock, Duncan.
Now, this is why it can't be the skeleton, because she grabs a big ass rock and crushes Talvinder's face, which did not look crushed as a skeleton.
Uh,
Unless someone has meticulously glued it all back together. That's not how a skull works. See if her
I mean,
skull caves in, it's gone, Bo.
you're right. Also, I still think it's the body of Talvinder Gill.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It totally is the body, but this show has set up something which, like, would all but make it not possible. Like, you know what I mean?
You're not suggesting that
No,
maybe
no.
Slasher is not an excellent television show, are you?
Like, literally, what I'm saying is this most likely was Talvinder Gill, right? Like, almost 100% was. But the setup for her death is so egregiously dumb, because we've seen that skeleton now. It's so egregiously dumb that it just had me sitting there going, is he trying to pull a fucking fast one here? No. Is it like, yeah, so like we now know why Andy's the first one to die, because Andy was the one that killed her.
Yeah. And so, and that's the end of the show, is the revelation.
That's the end of the show altogether.
No. Just the end of this episode.
Oh,
if only. Like, this season's one episode long. Duran, here we come.
Yay.
So yeah, that's where the premiere ends. It's it's real dumb. Dumb. In a way, and especially now that we've talked about it, I'm like, okay, this is a nice groundwork for a good time this season.
Yeah. But we know the format. We know
yes.
This is the same format as before. Every episode, we're going to get something about a character, and that character will die at the end.
I hope that we have the kind of, breakneck whips and pans around the plot of like, oh, all of a sudden here's a subplot about somebody keeping somebody in their basement. Great.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is they need to, like, either everyone dies in a weekend, right, or a blizzard happens, because after that first death and not being able to make contact with the police within the first 24 hours, someone's on one of those snowmobiles back to the cars to get help.
Yeah,
right.
The blizzard is a good call. Also, if we learn some secret about the Borg having,
well, this is the other thing. Like, why did they uncover the body, or are they fucking with these kids, or is one of them in this retreat the broken remnants of one of the parents? Is there a Gill in here somewhere, or what is going on? Because that's the only way it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I totally think that's what it is. I'll give you my early prediction for the killer. Either it's Mark Stroganoff, or this sounds out of left field, but it could also be young handsome dude that we only got a glimpse of this episode. That's like, it's weird that they're up here, right? That dude, because he's also the one who was kind of putting it in Judah's head that, like, we shouldn't trust them,
Yeah. I think it might be. I'm going slightly off to the side at the moment. I'm doubling down with Steak Guy.
Okay.
And the reason, because he's the last one in the commune. Which makes me think he's just been up there a few months. Maybe because he anticipated them coming back up. Or I don't know. Like, part of me still thinks it might be someone in the guilty party who is the guilty party. It could very well be a Susan who has brought them all there. She's already removed the skeleton because she was the one that advanced set up the fucking murder pit. She's already removed the skeleton. She's brought them all up there to get rid of them one by one, because these are the only people that could potentially ruin her perfect life.
Computer, give us a mystery so good even Data can't figure it out.
The thing is, I know for a fact that we're going to work out who the killer is well in advance.
Yeah.
And then it is going to, well, maybe not as quick as Cam as we were in the first episode of the previous one. We're putting forward our predictions, but I do get the feeling that is not going to be a worthwhile journey to get to it. And I'm kind of all right with it. See if it retains this level of fucking stupidity, then there's going to be plenty of ridicule. We have no worrying about, are we being too mean on Slasher Ball?
Look, are we probably too mean? Sure.
No,
but also, it's kind of a dumb show. It like if and for those people, like we've had people that are like, I really like Slasher season 2 or I like Slasher season 3. By all means, continue to like it. The fact that we're goofing on it, please do not let that
Oh
interfere
no,
with your enjoyment
there's
of
yeah,
anything.
each to their own. Like I've said
Yes.
before, there is a fan of everything somewhere in the world. Someone who really loves something that everyone else doesn't, and that shouldn't ever color the way you look at something or appreciate something. Just to me, and the thing is, between me and Bo, I'm the bigger slasher fan, not TV show genre.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the bigger slasher fan, but I call it like I see it, and this is. I mean, like 1997 phoned and wants it set up and script back. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so like this is what was this 2017? I think is when this came out. 2018. So we are like 20 years past when these sort of movies were being made, and it's not even trying to put like a new spin on it. It is just all the cliche and none of the wit. So
Yeah,
yeah,
2017. I did confirm this is only 3 or 4 years old at this point. So
yeah, I
yeah,
know what you did last summer came out in '97,
it's
so it's 20 years.
you're right. The 20-year
20 year
anniversary of
itch.
I Know What You Did Last
It's a
Summer.
20-year itch. This
Yeah.
is what happens every 20 years. Art repeats itself. So this is them taking a swing at it. And if they can pull the wool over my eyes and give me the setting has me in.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love the idea of isolated, snow-covered territory and a killer. I am totally cool with that. But they need to start making moves here in a direction that kind of makes sense or adds more viable red herrings, because at the moment I'm kind of seeing through all of them.
Yeah, and I think it's because we're fresh off the heels of season 1 that we kind of have a sense of where Aaron Martin likes to go with these things.
Yeah.
But like you said, for as much as we goof on it, I love the fact that the one thing I will say about Slasher as a series is it's not dull.
Mhm.
And the second it gets boring is when it all falls apart. Like I can go with this this really dumb premise that we're on, and like Mark Stroganoff and the whole cult and all that stuff. All that stuff I'm totally on board for, as long as you keep the story moving. And that's why I do like those just, neck breaking plot twists that send you careening into some other story, like in season 1. And
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with all of that. Just keep doing that, and we will keep doing this and keep having a good time with it, all the way up until the gorgeous face of David Cronenberg appears on our screens to let us know that it's all been worth it.
It's all been worth it, Bo Ransdell.
Speaking
All
of
been
being worth it, Duncan, where can people find more out of you? Should they want to continue their journey into the cranium of one Duncan McLeish?
They should check out Podcast Under the Stairs, and all its various sub shows. All found at tputscast, tputscast.com. You've got shows like Where to Begin With, which is looking at full found footage documentary, mockumentary movies at the moment. Down the Nasty, which is looking at the tier 3 video nasty list from 1984. Or something like Chronicle, which is about to come back with a new spin on it that I'm very much looking forward to doing and announcing. And Opera Omnia, where myself and this guy here, Bo Ransdell, are going through the Fincher filmography. This month, we will be looking at Panic Room, which I'm very excited. That's what I'm watching tonight. So I'm very excited to see where that lands.
Do not be shy to send me a message. And you can start with just an apology. If you like. Well, I'm sorry, Bo. You were right. This movie rocks.
I'm sorry, Bo. I can't write that.
I'm very ugly. You're very attractive. You're very smart. I'm very dumb. Any of those are fine.
Yeah, I know how this goes. There we go. But yeah, so they're doing that. Podcast Under the Stairs is trundling on with tons of content at the moment. Looking at a couple of different box sets. About to start Russian Roulette franchise retro on the Urban Legend trilogy before moving into the I Know What You Did Last Summer trilogy next month. The Scream trilogy will follow the Scream quadrilogy will follow the month after that, and then One Missed Call the month after that. And we're almost at summer series time, so yeah, it's going to be busy time over there. But I'm looking forward to breaking up those serious efforts. Question mark. With plenty of bants over here doing some slasher. What about yourself, Bo?
As always, you can find everything at legionpodcasts.com. Or Legion Podcasts on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, all of those places. I thank everyone for listening, for watching. If you like what you're seeing and or hearing, the one thing I would ask you to do is share the love a little bit. You know, if you know somebody who's interested in a new podcast or something real dumb to watch on YouTube, we have both of those things in spades. Also, thanks to everyone who joined us for the chat. Alan chiming in with a couple of notes before we get out of here. First of all, don't Romulan bones heal 2 months after they die? That seems like science.
Yes.
And then leaves this little tidbit in the chat. I am so looking forward to when the penny drops for this season. I don't know what that means, but I am very excited to learn. So, Duncan, as always, thank you for joining me on this adventure. And there is nothing left to do but to say goodnight, Duncan.
Good night, Duncan.
No, number one.
Behave.
Oh, behave.
It's a naughty.